here, you're going to see brake lights turning back at the 110 freeway. And a crash in Santa Fe Springs has been moved to the right-hand shoulder, 605 south up past Slauson Avenue. Still seeing some pretty heavy traffic from Whittier Boulevard. That should thin out. In Long Beach, somebody hit a dog 91 westbound for Atlantic Avenue. That's blocking the right lane.
I'm Howard Mackler, founder of Innovation Refunds. If you own a business and still haven't applied for the payroll tax refund, we want to pay a licensed tax attorney to see if you're eligible to receive up to $26,000 per employee. Go to getrefunds.com, getrefunds.com.
Is this the tackle?
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
The Clippers lose by 14 in Phoenix last night. The first round series is tied at 1-1. Devin Booker had a game-high 38 points and 9 assists. The Clippers got an outstanding performance from Kawhi Leonard and Russell Westbrook. Leonard finished with 31 points. Westbrook had 28. The next two games are in L.A. The Lakers are back in action tonight in Memphis for Game 2 of their first-round series. The Lakers are one up on Memphis. Memphis guard Ja Morant is questionable with a bruised right hand. Lakers coach Darvin Ham said the team is preparing for Memphis as if Morant will be on the court. Golden State's Draymond Green was suspended for one game without pay for stepping on the chest of Kings forward Domantas Sabonis on Monday. The incident left Sabonis with a bruised sternum. Green will miss Game 3 Thursday night. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
Stand up and fight!
When news breaks, you can count on KBLA Talk 1580 for exclusive interviews.
You're listening to A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. I'm Dr. Nicordelai Corte. Incredibly delighted to welcome Tennessee State Representative Justin Pearson. Brother, welcome to the show.
As Tennesseans, as Americans, as people's conscience, our responsibility is to give proximate to this movement. This is the moment. Folks always wonder, is this time for me to start using my voice for speaking up, for advocating for issues? This is it.
This is it.
The present moment where we are seeing the erosion of democracy, where we're seeing duly elected officials being expelled because we're raising the issue about the need to end gun violence and protect communities. And so for everyone who has ever had a thought that I need to do something, I need to be engaged, this is the moment to transform our cities, our counties, our states, and the United States of America.
Weekdays, weekends. Stay tuned to KBLA Talk 1580 for the conversations that matter most to you. At KBLA Talk 1580, we've got your black.
Try to keep it coming. Things ain't always smooth, but I'll be alright as long as I can find the groove. Yes, I will. Yeah. Somehow I know that I can make it. You seem to like my style. Don't you worry, I'm gonna be around a while.
Live from Leimert Park, USA, I'm Tavis, Smiley, and you're listening to KBLA Talk 1580. So glad to see you and me back in stride again. Our phone number, 1-800-920-1580, 1-800-920-1580. All of our socials can be found at KBLA 1580. That's Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube, everything at KBLA 1580. Let me also invite you right now to download our app at KBLA 1580 and listen to us live anywhere in the world, but only if you download the app right now at KBLA 1580. Should you miss us any day in real time, check out the podcast of our program by going to the app, the website, Anchor, Spotify, Apple, so many places to get the podcast of this program and listen at your leisure should you miss us any day in real time. But I am delighted to have you along live with us today for the next 3 hours. You can also watch the live stream of this program by tapping on the KBLA TV icon on our app or by going to our YouTube channel. And let me also invite you to follow me on Facebook and Instagram at The Real Tavis Smiley and get Twitter updates at Tavis Smiley. Another great show on tap for you today. In our second hour, unarmed black person in the wrong place at the wrong time. Black person ends up seriously wounded or dead, usually at the hands of a white person. Black community and the nation get outraged. Black community protest. Culprit may or may not be held accountable. Story dies down. Repeat incident happens days or weeks later. Can the cyclical occurrence be interrupted or arrested? We will talk with sociologist Dr. Andrea S. Boyles in hour 2. In our third hour, the connection between black literature and black resistance, how reading and writing can empower us to affect change and better understand the world that we inhabit, especially at a time such as this when young readers are being denied access to certain text. Patrick M. Oliver, the founder and CEO of Say It Loud, Readers and Writers, joins us today in hour 3. But let's commence our program today talking politics with our regular contributor, Ruben Navarrete Jr., host of the very popular podcast, Ruben in the Center, and the most widely read Latino columnist in the nation, courtesy of his Washington Post Syndicate column. Ruben Navarrete Jr., welcome back, my friend. How are you, sir?
My brother, always great to be with you. Thank you.
It's good to have you on. Let me start with this. What else is there to start with? It's the news of the day. This Fox News Dominion lawsuit settlement. I think many of us expected. And let me back up. I certainly thought that earlier on Fox would have settled this case. And when we got to yesterday, particularly after today, Wednesday? So Monday, the judge stayed the start of the trial to give both sides the time to talk about a settlement. Not unusual in cases like these. The judge would prefer that the sides reach a settlement rather than drag this through the system. And so the judge halts the case on Monday, asks both sides to meet once again to see if they can come to a settlement. That doesn't happen. So on Tuesday, the trial is set to begin. Here we go. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, we hear breaking news that a settlement has been reached to the tune of $787 million. Fox settles this case for all the obvious reasons. I was just so surprised that it got this close to the start line. That's my read of it. How did you read the settlement yesterday?
So 4 things came to mind. Okay. Brother? First of all, I would like to have seen this play out. I think a lot of people agree with that. I wanted to see the whole thing go. I wanted to see it go to trial. I wanted to see or hear reports of the top stars at Fox having to take the stand. I wanted to see Rupert Murdoch take the stand. Mm-hmm. So I wanted all that. All the stuff that Fox wanted to avoid, I wanted to see. The second thing is that number, while it seems staggering, $787 billion.
Million.
Yeah. $1 million. It should have been higher.
Mm-hmm.
And here's why. I just looked this up, and you know this figure as well. Fox News reports revenue of $4 billion a quarter.
Mm-hmm.
That's $1 billion a month. So they are going to earn this out in about 3 weeks. Now, I'm happy for Dominion because it's a big check. I'm happy for Dominion because it's a big check. And I'm happy for the Dominion lawyers because they get a third of that big check, okay? But in the scheme of things, you can see why Fox News wanted this resolved because they're going to make this back in 3 weeks. So I would like to have seen the payout to be a lot bigger.
Mm-hmm.
The third thing is I would like to have seen a likewise rush to disclose the settlement amount in an earlier case. You remember that CNN was threatened with a lawsuit by Nick Sandman
mm-hmm.
for that incident in front of the Lincoln Memorial where he was photographed, this white kid with a MAGA hat and a smirk on his face, a smart little smirk, right? I wrote about it. Other people wrote about it. I got the wrong impression, and people painted him as a racist, and he threatened to sue CNN. CNN gave him a payout, along with other media companies, but those numbers were sealed. We don't know what those numbers were, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we can't cite today on this show, well, it was a $500 million settlement or whatever. So I'd like to see disclosure all the way around and be fair about it. The last thing is this, and this really is a tribute to the Tavis Smiley show, okay? Because you and I spoke on this show at length about Joe Biden's policy with regard to Haitian immigrants, to keep out Haitian immigrants.
Mm-hmm.
But when I tuned into NPR a couple days later, NPR, your former employer, my former employer, you as a host, me as a contributor, NPR told that story completely differently, brother. They talked about how Joe Biden and the administration had worked out a deal whereby they would let in a certain number of Haitians, a certain number of Cubans, Venezuelans, right? They didn't mention the cap. And I thought about it, I went back, I listened to it, I said, wait a minute, this is a lie by omission. You see, a lie is what they were doing over at Fox News, and they got caught, and good for them that they got caught. But let's not kid yourself. If you consume white, mainstream, liberal media, you're also being lied to. The difference is, in those cases, you're being lied to about facts that make Democrats like Joe Biden look bad. But lucky you, if you tuned into the Tavis Smiley show the day before, you got to hear Ruben Navarrete and Tavis Smiley together again talking about the truth of the issue. So I say, okay, what's making me a little nervous today is all the folks in the liberal media pointing the finger at Fox saying, oh, my God, they lied, clutch the pearls. And I'm thinking, wait a minute. Those of us who consume media know that you all lie, too. You all lie about black folks and brown folks. You all lie to protect white liberals when they're screwing black folks and brown folks. And we have the receipts.
He's on fire. And we're just getting started. I'm only 12 minutes in. I hate to interrupt him, and so I hold my peace to let him lay his foundation. Those are 4 interesting points, and I want to interrogate every one of them as we come forward and talk about this Fox News settlement. It is the talk of the nation today. You hear his point. $787 million is a lot of money. You got to be happy for Dominion in this case, but for Fox News, for the parent company, for Rupert Murdoch, it's still a lot of cash. There's no way to deny that $787 million is a lot of cash. It's a lot of money, no doubt about that. But in some ways, for them, it is a drop in the bucket. There are any number of questions to ask in this hour, as we will when we come forward, about whether or not Ruben thinks this actually makes a difference. I posed this question a couple of days ago to one of our guests. Do you think that however this thing ends, it will make a difference? And by that, I mean make a difference in the numbers of persons who watch Fox News, those who care about Fox News, I suspect really don't care about this ordeal, this settlement. Again, a great deal more to interrogate about that. And then there are a bunch of other things I want to get to in this hour as well. That's not the only news today, but it certainly is the trending topic, certainly across the nation today, this Fox News settlement yesterday with Dominion. We'll get back to this conversation and discuss a few more things with Ruben Navarrete Jr. when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
We've got a lot to talk about. Good thing we've got 3 hours. More of Tavis Smiley when we come forward.
Let's get back to business, Los Angeles County. The Economic Opportunity Grant Program is now open. This program is designed to provide financial support to qualified small businesses, micro-entrepreneurs, food industry businesses such as restaurants, and nonprofits in Los Angeles County. Approximately 4,600 grants of up to $2,500 will be administered to qualified micro-businesses that face barriers to accessing capital resources. To learn more about the Economic Opportunity Grant Program, visit www.grants.lacounty.gov. The application process is fast and easy. Don't miss the opportunity to get back to business. This program is administered by the County of Los Angeles through its Department of Economic Opportunity and funded in part through a grant from the California Office of the Small Business Advocate. Application portal is powered by Lendistry. Visit www.grants.lacounty.gov and get back to business.
Life is uncertain. It's okay to feel stressed, anxious, worried, or frustrated. It's normal. With CalHope's free and secure mental health resources, it's easy to get the help you and your loved ones need when you need it the most. Call our warm line at 833-317-4673 or live chat at calhope.org today.
Periods don't care what you're doing, but your pads should. Get Always Triple Protection System in Always Day and Night Pads. Always Day Pads protect when active by wicking away gushes 2 times faster than leading store brands and giving us up to 100% leak-free and odor-free comfort. When we size up our pad at night, we get the same triple protection, plus up to 75% more coverage in the back for when we're laying down. No matter what, Always has you covered, day and night.
This world has its limits, but in the all-new, all-electric Nissan Ariya, you've got a world of possibilities. You can leave it all behind in serene interiors, or you can go after it with available e-Force all-wheel drive. Go your way in the all-new, all-electric Nissan Ariya. Nissan Ariya with e-Force not yet available for purchase. Expected availability early 2023, subject to change. E-Force all-wheel drive is an optional feature. E-Force cannot prevent collisions or provide enhanced traction in all conditions. Always monitor traffic and weather conditions.
Interrogating your assumptions and expanding your inventory of ideas. Let's get back to Tavis Smiley on KBLA Talk 1580.
Ruben Navarrete Jr., do you think, before I get back to your list, the question I posed moments ago, do you think that this settlement of $787 million that Fox arrived with Dominion on, do you think it matters to their fortunes? You made the point earlier how fast they're going to make this back, the money that is. Do you think it matters ultimately to their fortunes, and do you think it matters at all to their followers?
It does not matter to their fortunes. They're going to make this back, as I said earlier, in a hurry. And they could have sustained much more damage the longer this gone out. Some people talked about this being, appealed all the way to the Supreme Court. Mm-hmm. There's no way the Fox had the stomach for that. No way. They were going to bleed out lots and lots of money along the way. So this was a good resolution for them. They're not going to feel a hit financially. They're also not going to feel a hit with their loyal viewership, mm-hmm. because their viewers are in a silo. They're in a bubble. They only consume that channel. And for starters, if that channel doesn't report it, and last night I understood that they gave it all of about 6 minutes coverage, mm-hmm. the story on Fox News itself, then people are not going to hear it. And even if they did hear it, think about what I just said about NPR. I caught NPR in a lie. Mm-hmm. I catch NPR in lies all the time. And every day I still listen to NPR. We know that CNN lied about Nick Sandmann, portraying him as a little white racist who was harassing this Native American in front of the steps of the Lincoln Memorial. We know that they lied because they paid him out. Mm-hmm. Okay, I still watch CNN.
Yeah. Yeah. So let me come right to that then. So at the end of the day, what does it mean then? This is the industry that you are in and I'm a part of. We've been at it for a better part of 3 decades now, having met when we were kids. You and I were kids. We met and started working on radio together here in L.A. Right. Here we are 30 years later, basically still friends. Imagine that. And talking about the same things we were talking about 3 decades ago, and that is this notion that these networks, the mainstream media, doesn't always get it right. To be kind, to be generous, to be charitable. So what does it mean in this moment that a major news network agrees to a settlement that essentially acknowledges that we lied? This is called a spade a spade. That's what this settlement is all about. It is to avoid a trial, but the settlement itself underscores repeatedly the fact that Fox News lied. Let's just say it that way. They lied, and the settlement acknowledges that. What does it mean in this moment in America when a major news network just confesses we got caught lying? Does that mean nothing?
I think it means, as I said, nothing. We said nothing financially, nothing in terms of their viewership, nothing in terms of their credibility, because the people who believe them already believe them and still believe them. And those who don't think Fox News has any credibility, well, we'd already reached that conclusion some time back, right? Mm-hmm. And that includes me. But the difference here is I also think CNN lacks credibility. That's where I'm at, right? Ruben in the center. Mm-hmm. But I think your point is well taken in terms of what the moment means. Yeah. And the moment means that buyer beware. Mm. I think it means this. I think that African Americans and Latinos and all Americans out there should consume media from across the board. Mm-hmm. They should watch Fox News and be very critical of what they're taking in. Be able to call out the lies as they're hearing them in real time. Know what the quote enemy is thinking, the adversary is thinking. Mm-hmm. But also watch CNN and do the same thing there. Don't just accept at face value that there's good networks and bad ones, and they're on our side and they're not on our side. Mm-hmm. Nobody's on your side, okay? Mm-hmm. Nobody's coming, right? Mm-hmm. The terrible thing about this, you and I have this wonderful relationship and friendship that has endured these 3 decades, but you and I have been through the ringer with regard to our profession. We could write many books just about that.
Amen to that. Yeah.
My relationship to journalism, your relationship to journalism and to media, and to some degree, we know what they're putting on the plate because we've been in the kitchen. Mm-hmm. We know how the sausage is made. And there's a lot of ugliness that we've seen and been privy to, and we have a right to be cynical, and that's what people need to do. They need to be much more critical of what they take in and ask questions.
Yeah. To your point about NPR, I want to come back to that because, again, I full disclosure, I once worked at NPR, of course, as a host. For a number of years, you've been a contributor at NPR, and I don't want to just bag on NPR. I take your broader point, and this is not a softball. I'm raising this specifically because you raised it, number one, but number two because I think there's something there, and it's simply this: that in the most multicultural, multiracial, multi-ethnic America ever, it seems to me, to your point, that people of color need to be reading a variety of sources of information. You do not want to be, in this moment, a one-source individual. You have to read a variety of sources of information. I do it every day. You do it every day. Anybody who wants to be well-versed and well-rounded has to be reading and paying attention to a variety of news sources and playing them against each other to try to ascertain as best you can what the truth really is. The truth cannot be what you determine it to be. There is a truth on many of these facts. And so I want those who are listening right now to recognize what I do and what you do. Never mind the fact that you and I still have our difference of opinions. We read a variety of sources. But something is wrong when a network like NPR, which has been voted, you see these opinion polls every year that says that NPR is the most trusted news source in the nation. And they can spin a story like the one you just laid out about what Biden did vis-a-vis Haitian immigrants. So it suggests to me that black voices and brown voices and brown-owned media and black-owned media are more necessary and relevant now than ever before. Why do I raise that? Because there are folk, in fact, when this station came online, I mean, we played a promo here that ran for a while. Right. We played a promo here that ran for a while from of voices at KFI, the other station, the number one talk station in the city. I ain't afraid to say their names. Everybody knows KFI. There were voices on KFI who were in a conversation about KBLA Talk 1580. And we pulled some of that audio and turned it into a promo, Ruben. And the clip that we pulled basically underscored the fact that they were saying that they weren't sure the station was going to make it. They weren't sure KBLA Talk 1580 was going to survive because it was so niche. They're just playing to black people. They're just playing to progressives. And they were debating on their station, in drive time, whether or not they thought that we could make it as a station. I mean, the jury is still out. We're not even 2 years old yet. We will see how long KBLA Talk 1580 survives, but I'm betting on black. I'm betting on Tavis. I'm betting on my team, and I got Jesus on my side. So I hope this is all going to work out for us. But the fact that they can be having a conversation on this other station about whether or not we were going to survive because we were too niche at a moment when we need black and brown voices just struck me as interesting. Your take on that?
Oh boy.
Yeah.
You likewise have given me a lot to think about there. Let me respond to it as an insider.
Right.
I've got a story of my own. Let me just jump in on that. I'll jump with my story. 22 years ago, I launched my syndicated column with the Washington Post. 22 years ago. Mm-hmm. And when I signed the paperwork in Washington, they said, "Is there anything we can do for you?" And I said, "Yeah, I'd love to meet George Will." Because I've admired his work for a long time. I don't agree with him all the time, but he's incredibly sharp and a great writer. I'd love to meet him. The great syndicated columnist of the Washington Post. And they made a call. They arranged it. I got a call from Will's office. He said, "Mr. Will would love to take you to lunch in Georgetown." So I meet him in Georgetown for lunch. And I'm not talking out of school to say I had a wonderful time at the lunch. Very bright guy. I've enjoyed meeting him. But he asked me at the outset, day one of the column, basically a similar thing to what you heard on KFI. Do you think that I think he framed it this way. I would think it would be a challenge to write for a constituency. Okay? Mm-hmm. And what he was saying was, I'm Mexican.
Yeah.
And I'm Mexican-American. I'm going to be writing a column for other Mexican-Americans, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, first of all, you do not get into the Washington Post for 22 years.
That's right.
Playing Major League Baseball if you're only speaking to Mexicans.
That's right.
So that's the first thing, okay? So I don't have anything left to prove to anybody, including George. But having said that, I played that in my head for a long, long time because guess who also has a constituency? George Will. See, George Will always had a constituency and was conservatives and white male conservatives at that. During Donald Trump's era, that constituency left George. Because George, to his credit, was a big-time anti-never-Trumper.
Mm-hmm.
And those conservative white males left him. And they consider him now kind of a fake Republican. He has no constituency anymore. But that was the irony, because do you think the KFI doesn't have a constituency?
Mm-hmm.
KFI has a constituency. If you're an angry white male and you think you would have been president of the United States and won the Nobel Peace Prize if some black kid hadn't taken your spot at Yale, then you need to tune into John and Ken in the afternoon, because there you have two mediocre brothers of very low talent and low IQ who've somehow been successful. Is this a great country or what? So there is a constituency there for everybody, and that's where I think I get off the bus, because they're quick to point the finger at you and me or somehow being niche, and we're talking to a small little group of people, but they likewise are talking to a small group of people. The only difference is the people they're talking to are angry white folks. The people we're talking to may be a little different.
Yeah, no, that was I didn't know that story. As long as I've known you, I hadn't heard the George Will story. I know George well. He and I have sat next to each other for many years on ABC on the Sunday morning program this week on ABC. So I know George quite well. And I didn't know that story, but it underscores exactly what I was getting at, which is that our voices need to be heard today, and that's not a slap on the back. It's not a shout out to KBLA. I'm just saying, when you hear stories like Ruben about NPR, and I see these things all the time. As a matter of fact, when I read mainstream papers, I'm always and I've taught classes about this. I try to teach people how to read for what they're not seeing on the page. You shouldn't just be reading. You should be interrogating what you're reading as you're reading it. What did they leave out of the story? Why did that sentence stop right there? What did they not explain? So there are all kinds of questions one has to ask. I teach students all the time. As you're reading an article, you want to interrogate it. You want to upend it, even as you're processing your way through it for what's not there. And oftentimes you'll see the stuff that they left out, the stuff they didn't want to address. And again, to your story about NPR, just completely spinning that Joe Biden Haiti thing is fascinating to me. I'm looking at my clock here. I got news, traffic, and sports in about 2 minutes, and we'll continue on the other side, of course. Let me come back to this Fox Dominion issue, then we'll move on to some other stuff when we come forward. But to your point, that you would have loved to have seen this at trial. Everybody pretty much has said the same thing, of course, except Fox News. Everybody wanted to see Tucker Carlson on the stand. They wanted to see Tucker on the hot seat. They wanted to see Murdoch on the hot seat. That obviously is not going to happen. But at the end of the day, my view is that Fox will continue doing what they do. Their ratings, I agree with you, are going to stay steady. And I don't know what the other networks can do about that. I mean, clearly it's a tight competition, Ruben, but I don't know what CNN, MSNBC, or others can do about that hit that Fox News is taking today.
Oh, I'm going to answer this question by way of dovetailing into something I wanted to say earlier that fit. And that is, I've walked those halls at Fox News. I've been up to the 10th floor. I've walked. I've met with people there. I've met with Bill Shine. I've met with Suzanne Smith. I've met with other people. I have been on Fox News before as a guest. I've walked the halls at KFI. I've hosted shows for its sister network at KFI. And so I know that there's a lot of good folks in those buildings. But the overall, aura of the place, I think, changes you and it leads you to cut some corners journalistically.
Yeah.
And here's one example. I remember walking the halls at Fox News with somebody who used to work at CNN, I won't say who, and we were talking to somebody else who used to work at CNN, and we were in somebody's office, and the guy I was with was being looked at for a position at Fox News, and he says to the other guy, how are things here? And he goes, I like it here. He looks at him in a knowing way, and he says, people tend to do what they say they're going to do. And what he meant there in a knowing way, I know it was clear, was it's not like that other place. And so here's the thing. It gets back to, again, being in the kitchen and seeing how things are made. It's not just a question, Tavis, of NPR and CNN and NBC and these various media companies making billions of dollars being untruthful in what they put on the air. Oftentimes, they are not the most truthful people in the way they deal with their employees. Okay? This is coming from somebody who has been fired 35 years in media and journalism. I've been fired 15 times.
Hold that thought. Let me do news, traffic, and sports. I want to let you finish your point in that regard, and move to some other topics that are newsworthy as well. We're talking to our regular contributor Ruben Navarrete Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
Be sure to like and follow Tavis Smiley at The Real Tavis Smiley and get Twitter updates at Tavis Smiley. The conversation continues when we come forward.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Mike Moore. Here's the latest from the Black Information Network. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention is taking up a request today for a second dose of the updated COVID booster for older adults.
Bivalent booster began to be offered last September, and mRNA is not holding up as well as we'd like to in terms of durability of protection.
Baylor's Dr. Peter Hotez says this booster will be important for those with weakened immune systems and for those who are taking care of older adults. Buffalo Bills player, African-American Damar Hamlin, is cleared to return to football. Hamlin suffered cardiac arrest during a Monday Night Football game against the Cincinnati Bengals last season. Team GM Brandon Beane said all doctors who saw Hamlin last week were all in agreement to clear him for football activities. And that's the latest. I'm Mike Moore from your 24/7 news source, the Black Information Network and BINnews.com.
Somebody broken down through Long Beach as you take that 91 east, approaching the 710. They're onto the right shoulder. Troubles in Baldwin Park on the 605 south of the 10. Left lane blocked to the crash. We're busy from Ramona Boulevard. Diamond Bar to wreck on our 60 eastbound at Phillips Ranch Road. That's onto the right side as you get to D-Bar Boulevard, the busy drive. And through Gardena, taking the 110 south. This is right as you get towards El Segundo Boulevard. Earlier wreck still blocking 2 right lanes. We're busy from Imperial Highway.
I'm Howard Mackler, founder of Innovation Refunds. If you own a business and still haven't applied for the payroll tax refund, we want to pay a licensed tax attorney to see if you're eligible to receive up to $26,000 per employee. Go to getrefunds.com, getrefunds.com.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
The Clippers lose by 14 in Phoenix last night. The first-round series is tied at 1-1. Devin Booker had a game-high 38 points and 9 assists. The Clippers got an outstanding performance from Kawhi Leonard and Russell Westbrook. Leonard finished with 31 points. Westbrook had 28. The next 2 games are in L.A. The Lakers are back in action tonight in Memphis for Game 2 of their first-round series. The Lakers are 1-up on Memphis. Memphis guard Ja Morant is questionable with a bruised right hand. Lakers coach Darvin Ham said the team is preparing for Memphis as if Morant will be on the court. Golden State's Draymond Green was suspended for 1 game without pay for stepping on the chest of Kings forward Domantas Sabonis on Monday. The incident left Sabonis with a bruised sternum. Green will miss Game 3 Thursday night. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm young, gifted, and black.
KBLA Talk 1580, we do more than just talk.
Hey there, I'm Jared Hill, president of the National Association of Black Journalists of Los Angeles, and I just want to say thank you for the benevolent $10,000 donation and scholarships for the next generation of black journalists.
And I'm Haywood Galbraith, photojournalist and founder of the Minority Photojournalism Institute. Thanks, KBLA, for your generous $10,000 scholarship gift to help us train the next generation of black photojournalists.
Congratulations to all the students who will benefit from the scholarship dollars raised at our Black History Month luncheon, honoring black legends in LA media. When we come forward at KBLA Talk 1580, we're bringing everybody with us. Everybody with us. Everybody with us. Everybody with us.
This is KBLA Talk 1580. Talk radio. That's music to your ears. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580.
Coming to Los Angeles. It's the show that rocked the country, playing to over 1.5 million people. It's God's Trying to Tell You Something. Coming to the Wilshire Ebell Theater for 1 day only. Saturday, April 22nd at 2 and 7 p.m. See what everyone is talking about and feel the power of God.
So this was the bomb. I loved it.
It was really, really good. Amazing singing. The performers were fantastic.
A little crying. There was a lot of laughter. My kids was like, Mom, what's wrong? Because I started to cry. And I said, these are just tears of joy.
It met and exceeded the expectations. It was very well presented, and everybody did great.
It was fantastic. I felt like I was on Broadway.
Tickets on sale now at Eventbrite.com and God's Trying to Tell You Something.com. It's the theatrical masterpiece you've got to see. It's God's Trying to Tell You Something.
Oh, yeah, I really enjoyed it. So blessed to be here.
Don't miss it. At KBLA Talk 1580, we do more than just talk.
You got a big mouth.
Hello, Joe, you're up. Welcome. We're unapologetically progressive, and we don't black down.
I'm Tavis, Smiley. You listening to KBLA Talk 1580. We don't black down. We're glad to have you with us in this first hour. Today, our phone number 1-800-920-1580. Our guest in this hour is our regular contributor, Ruben Navarrete Jr., the most widely read Latino columnist in the nation, courtesy of his Washington Post Syndicate column, and host of the very popular podcast, Ruben in the Center. Ruben, you were finishing a point about a story you were telling about being at Fox News. When they finish your story, we'll move forward from there, my friend.
Yeah, very quickly. So I was just going to say that, in 35 years of doing journalism and media, in this, blender, crazy business that I'm in. I've been let go, shown the door, laid off, fired 15 times. People ask you, what have you done? What were you doing when you got fired? And I said, I was doing journalism. I was writing and saying things in many cases that were uncomfortable for my bosses. And not to get into that, the important thing is that I was not treated fairly. Mm-hmm. You're not going to see me outside talking about it. I'm not going to play the victim. You're not going to see me out with a protest sign. But my wife is of the opinion that if she sees a story about a politician, Democrat or Republican, cheating on his wife, it's very possible that he's not being honest and truthful with voters either. The same thing holds here. If you want to know how these media companies like Fox News, CNN, NPR, whatever, take your pick, my employer, the Washington Post, if you want to see how they're treating their constituencies, so to speak, their customers, think about how they treat their employees. Mm-hmm. And if they are treating their employees fairly and honestly and above board, then that's a product you should consume. But if they aren't, you ought to be careful.
Yeah. I should mention, as we buttonhole this Fox News Dominion lawsuit settlement that we've been discussing for the better part of this hour, I should mention, as you well know, that this these defamation lawsuits against Fox News are far from over. So they settled this one with Dominion, as you all know, yesterday, as the trial was beginning, for $787 million. But there's another defamation lawsuit they faced from Smartmatic, another one of these companies that has sued them for sort of denigrating them in the election, as they kept advancing this notion that the election had been stolen from Donald Trump. Dominion wasn't going to take it. They get a bunch of cash yesterday. And Smartmatic has said they're not going to take it. So their lawsuit is still alive, and they have filed a lawsuit for $2.7 billion against Fox News. So I suspect that Smartmatic is feeling a little better today, Ruben, when they see what Fox News gave to Dominion. Somebody at Smartmatic today is probably having a good day. What's your take on that?
So two things. It's good news for Smartmatic because they can basically take the admission to some degree if there is an admission, mm-hmm. And say, look, there's this payment, there's an implied admission, they were guilty of this against Dominion. It's not a stretch to say they were guilty of this same sort of untruthfulness about us.
Yeah.
So it's a good day for Smartmatic. Bad news, everything that came out in disclosure, unless I've missed it, in Discovery and all the various, they talked about, on Fox News, they talked about Dominion a lot more than they did Smartmatic. Mm-hmm. So you will hear that. Hear that Dominion had a much stronger case because for some reason Dominion became, for Lou Dobbs and others, a whipping boy. Yeah. Right? Kept using Dominion over and over again. I don't remember hearing much about Smartmatic.
Well, so you got to believe though. I'm no lawyer, but I've had enough legal brouhaha in my life to understand how this works. I will tell you this. That the odds are pretty good for Smartmatic because beyond what you've just said about what came out in Discovery and the settlement being a sort of tacit, if not implicit, admission that they did something wrong. The real thing here is that if Fox News did not want to go to trial and have all their business come out in a case with Dominion, they don't want that either with Smartmatic. And so you have to believe that the number for Smartmatic will be significantly smaller than this $787 million that they gave to Dominion. But I suspect that Smartmatic is going to have a good day somewhere down the road, getting some cash from Fox News. And again, whether that impacts the integrity, the credibility of Fox News, I just don't know. And again, we're out of time on that. I want to move on. But it suggests to me that if you can settle with Dominion and potentially down the road settle with Smartmatic. In both cases, essentially tacitly, if not explicitly, acknowledging that you lied, and there is still no hit on your integrity. There is still no hit on your credibility.
Right.
To my mind, that means one of two things. You ain't got no integrity or you ain't got no credibility to begin with. Even though you have an audience, you don't have any integrity or credibility, or it just doesn't matter. And our country, our democracy is in deep, deep, you know what. If you can take a hit like that, not once but twice,
Right.
and it still not impact your earnings, it still not impact your audience. And, we didn't discuss this, but let me just do this right quick. I said I was going to move on, and I want to. But one quick question.
Sure.
We've only talked about this from the standpoint of Fox's viewers. We've not said anything about Fox's advertisers. Here's my question. We could spend hours talking about this. It just occurs to me now. Do advertisers have any responsibility when they're trying to sell their product to everyday consumers who are watching a network like Fox News? Do they have any responsibility to be concerned about placing ads on a network that has not once but twice potentially acknowledged, again, tacitly, if not explicitly, that they lie in their news coverage? What about the advertiser in this process? Because that's where the rub is always anyway, right?
The advertisers don't care. It's sad but true. The numbers are staggering. You are not only the host of this radio show, you're an owner of this radio station. You get off the air and you go back to being an owner, right? Mm-hmm. You go have these calls. The fact that they make $1 billion a month at Fox News, that ain't easy. And the reason they do that is because their numbers are so high, their ratings are so dominant. They squash CNN, they squash MSNBC. That's all the advertisers care about. They care about selling stuff. It's sad but true. It's not like any of the advertisers are going to all of a sudden have a come to Jesus moment where they say, "Oh my goodness, I can't have my product associated with these liars."
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, he said no. They're not coming to that conclusion now or ever. I digress on that point. I love that. That's the line of the day. No. I love it. No. Let me, since we're talking about Fox News, let me talk about some other conservatives, namely a guy named Clarence Thomas. I don't need to color this much, pardon the pun, I don't need to color this much more for you, or for that matter, our audience. We've all been talking about this on the station. We've been talking about it on this program. So the audience knows already the drama that Clarence Thomas is facing, taking these lavish gifts and these trips from his billionaire GOP friend, conservative friend, Harlan Crow. The audience knows the backstory. I want to ask you while I got you, what's your take on the Clarence Thomas drama of late, number one? And number two, do you think this is the moment where Clarence Thomas will finally be held accountable? Will Democrats have the spine to call him in front of a hearing to address these issues?
Well, you and I were first hosting radio show in the early radio shows in the early 1990s. Clarence Thomas had been on the court only about 4 or 5 years.
Yep.
But he was already a constant topic of conversation for us. I think a few things. I think despite the fact that you and I would disagree with lots of Clarence Thomas's rulings, you and I both should show some affinity for Clarence Thomas as an individual. And here's why. I go back to his confirmation hearing and the fact that he took the offensive and said, this is a high-tech lynching for uppity blacks.
Mm-hmm.
In 30 years of doing this, I have come to understand what he meant. Because after all these years, I too have scars to show for times where I have strayed off the hacienda and said things that were offensive and disappointing to the white liberals who run the media.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think you and I can both agree that we have both experienced what that's like. And we've said often, people who are white liberals, they want to give people like you, me, and Clarence Thomas every right under the sun except the right to think for ourselves.
Mm.
And so on that level, I identify with him and I am sympathetic to him. That's where it stops, though.
Mm.
Because in this particular case, I'm not troubled by his friendship with Harlan Crow, the billionaire developer from Dallas. I'm troubled by where that friendship leads.
Mm-hmm.
If there's a quid pro quo, I'll do for you so you do for me, that's a problem. That's an ethical violation. And as this story continues to unfold, you think about it, every day another piece of string comes off, right? The journalists keep pulling on string. Every single story that comes out is worse than the one before.
Mm-hmm.
So this started off about friendship and can a friend take you on a trip and pay for the trip. We are a long way from that now. We are now at a place where Harlan Crow owns the property where Clarence Thomas's mother lives.
Mm-hmm.
And now he's got his hooks into the justice in a much different way than before. So just give it time. This story will get worse. That's where I think my affinity with Clarence Thomas stops.
Yeah.
But at the very beginning of it all, you and I should be able to identify with anybody who gets pushed around or they try to push us around because we don't think the way they want to.
In 60 seconds here, I think you're probably right. The story gets worse, but my question on Clarence Thomas is the same as the question I asked about Fox News. In the end, will anything happen to Clarence Thomas? Yeah. I'm not sure if Fox is going to really pay a real price for this, as we've already established. And ultimately, does anything happen to Clarence Thomas? This story goes back to 2004. The LA Times wrote a story in 2004 about him taking these gifts and not reporting them. So does anything ultimately happen to Clarence Thomas, yes or no?
Well, there's only two outcomes, right? He has to resign or be impeached for anything to happen. Mm-hmm. He's not going to resign. He has alligator skin. He's already proven that. Mm-hmm. He's not going to resign. He has no shame any more than someone like Bill Clinton, a Democrat, has no shame. I mean, these people do awful things, and they show up in the morning with a smile on their face. And likewise, with regard to impeachment, this is a very high bar. I don't think that you're going to get to that level of impeaching a Supreme Court justice, and more because of what it would mean and the precedent it would set. And all of a sudden, Republicans would be targeting Democratic justices. I don't think this goes very far.
Nope, I think I hate to say it, and I haven't said it publicly, but I will say it now. I think you're right. I think Clarence Thomas will skate once again, just like Fox News will skate once again. And what that means for our democracy, I do not know, but I don't see the Democrats, having the kind of spine it would take to force an impeachment vote on Clarence Thomas. I don't see it. We'll continue with Ruben Alvarez Jr. when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
Say the quiet part out loud. KBLA Talk 1580.
The Los Angeles Urban League and Parkside Economic Development Corporation are working to close the wealth gap between black and white households. B-Warp, the Black Wealth Attainment and Retention Program's free virtual workshops will help your family acquire, gain, maintain, and pass down legacy wealth. Learn from the experts about making more with what you have, the Black History of Money, joining the Smart Investors Club, preserving your assets in tough times, crypto, cash in or cash out, the wealthy mind and body. Register for this free series that could change your financial future at laul.org/BWAARP. Don't miss B-Warp, the Black Wealth Attainment and Retention Program, every second and fourth Thursday in February, March, and April at 6 p.m. Pacific Time. Register now at laul.org/BWAARP.
15 million California Medi-Cal enrollees to have eligibility status reviewed starting this month. Maisha Cairo here with your K-Black Minute News, brought to you by Lendistry, story courtesy of CaliforniaBlackMedia.org. Pay attention to your Medi-Cal notices in the mail. As of April 2023, California has 14 months to review the eligibility of 15 million Medi-Cal enrollees after suspending this process throughout the COVID-19 pandemic. An estimated 2 to 3 million Californians may leave the program during this unwinding period. It is critical that enrollees watch out for notifications from local Medi-Cal offices. If you receive a yellow envelope, that means contact information or pertinent information to keep your coverage is missing.
Thanks to our new sponsor, Lendistry. Lendistry is a national Black-led small business lender that is headquartered in Los Angeles. Lendistry helps small business owners access the affordable capital needed to grow. Visit Lendistry, LENDISTRY.com/KBLA today.
KBLA Talk 1580 would like to thank all of the businesses that tune into KBLA at work. We celebrate you, your calls to the station, and your overall support. To show our appreciation, we would like to treat your office to a lunch for 10, brought to you by the Original Taco Pete's. Open the KBLA Talk 1580 app or log on to KBLA1580.com to submit your office to be selected for our Office of the Week. We know you're just like our staff, putting in many hard, smart working hours per week. We just want to say thank you, and we appreciate you. You and your staff deserve lunch on us. Enter your office to win lunch for 10 and be highlighted on KBLA Talk 1580 as our Office of the Week. Open the KBLA app or log on to KBLA 1580 to enter your office today to become the KBLA Talk 1580 Office of the Week, sponsored by the Original Taco Pete's, a Black-owned restaurant. Become the KBLA Talk 1580 Office of the Week. This has been a KBLA Talk 1580 community call to action. unpack a little bit more with Tavis Smiley. The conversation continues right now.
So, Ruben, I want to, while I have you, get your take on a few other things that I've seen you comment on, write about of late, and let the audience hear your views on these things and see if you and I will argue and fight about about a couple other things. Since we've not had a fight today, we both agree for the most part on this Fox News situation. Your thoughts quickly on the possibility of reparations here in California. The whole nation is watching California as we advance faster than everybody else on what could be a major reparations bill being passed in this state not too far down the road as the committee wraps up its public hearings. But your take on it sort of fascinated me. As I read it, you were basically advancing the notion that the possibility of reparations in California gives conservatives a valuable opportunity, as you see it, to highlight how liberal California is not when it comes to things like race. Unpack that for me right quick.
Right. So I was on a radio show with a conservative radio host in Denver, who I appear on a show often. And he, coming from Colorado, was saying this is just crazy that California is doing this. From the point of view of a white male Republican, there goes crazy California again. And I said, you're really missing the boat on this. You should be glad that this is happening in California. And he said, what do you mean? And I said, well, conservatives are always complaining about how the fact that they get painted as racist by white liberals and that nobody ever calls white liberals out as racist. Well, except for Ruben Navarrete, right? And you see where it's gotten him, right? So, and I said this to him, and I thought about it after the conversation. I wrote this, getting ready to write this column, because the members of the committee, the reparations committee, to their credit, when they have been forced to explain why they're asking for such extravagant things, and some of the stuff they're asking for in San Francisco, for instance, in their separate committee, it's crazy. It's crazy stuff. Nobody is going to go along with the idea of paying people $5 million per eligible applicant, or giving you $90,000 a year for 20 years, or letting you buy a house in San Francisco for $1. Okay? So that's crazy town. Let's just say that. This is not to say people may not be due some reparations, but they overreached in San Francisco. But that's not the point. The craziness is not the point, because to their credit, the members of the San Francisco Commission have had to document exactly where black people have been mistreated in the state of California for the last 150 years. And they have the receipts. And I love it. When you were growing up in Indiana and I was growing up in California, I was taught California history in California public schools. Mm-hmm. And guess what I was taught? I was taught a bunch of crap. because they painted a picture that all the racist white folks lived in Alabama. And there were no racist white folks in California in 1850. Mm. And they never told me about the fact that black people were barred from the gold rush in 1850, that black people had had to contend with, get this, brother, get this. We all know about the fugitive slave law. Mm-hmm. It gave birth to modern-day policing, and it said on a national level, Congress, to its shame, passed a law that said that if a freed slave left, and escaped to freedom, he'd have to be returned as property. Mm-hmm. Well, I didn't know until last month that there was a California version of that. There's a California fugitive slave law that was passed about the same time that said in California, if you had a runaway slave, you had to return them. So I don't get it. I don't see how, because we're a blue state and we vote for Democrats and all the Republicans are the racists, we show up wearing white. Have you heard? All the white liberals in California, they love black people. Mm-hmm. They have never sinned against black people, because those are the folks from Alabama.
But I take your point, and it's a great history lesson. Watching my clock here, it's a great history lesson. And you've said some things now in this conversation I suspect others did not know. And yet, at the end of the day, this is the opportunity for California to get it right. It's no different for me than the Bruce's Beach saga. Here's your opportunity to get it right. All that history that you did not get taught growing up here in California, notwithstanding, here is the opportunity for California to finally get it right and to show the nation how this issue ought to be handled. We could debate all day long about whether or not $5 million per person in San Francisco is the right way to do it. I hear your point, and I suspect even if I disagree with you on that, I know that others will see it the way you see it. That's not a winning fight. I'm the first to say that. On the other hand, it's a chance for the state to get it right. What that means, I'm not exactly sure. I digress for the moment. Our final moments with Ruben Navarrete Jr. when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA Talk 1580 is an intervention. When we come forward, includes you. KBLA Talk 1580, turning pain into power. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
Hi, Maisha Cairo here, KBLA, live at Chase Bank on Crenshaw and Vernon for the In This Together tour with female business owners, a day of empowerment, community panels, and best of all, tips on building business from marketing to capital. I was able to speak with one of the panelists, the owner of Kids Love. Take a listen.
So Kids Love, KIDSLUV, is a first-to-market zero-sugar, vitamin-enhanced functional beverage for kids.
So the zero sugar is really important because if not, the sugar gets on the teeth, it can cause cavities. So as a mom, I love this vitamins and hydration in one. Tell us what's happening here with Chase Bank today.
So I would say, I think what Chase is trying to do is create a community actually for entrepreneurs, a place where people can go. They have the space to do it. It's a beautiful space. And to be able to have these conversations. There are so many benefits to being a women-owned and certified business from a standpoint of getting into stores, not paying the slotting fees of what it takes to be in stores. So I think Chase is trying to bring awareness to a lot of the things that people just don't know about, that not only the bank can help, but outside of the bank, their relationships can help create.
That's beautiful. And I know, this is how we build equity in communities of color, is kind of spreading that information and that knowledge. So thank you for being here today and doing your part and letting these women know that it is possible. For KBLA 1580, I'm Maisha Cairo in the community with Chase.
Get in the zone, AutoZone.
Welcome to AutoZone, America's #1 brakes destination. We have the pads, rotors, drums, shoes, and brake fluids to improve your stopping power. Right now, save 15% when you get any 2 Duralast rotors with a set of Duralast brake pads. Missing a tool? Ask about our free Loan-A-Tool program and borrow the tools you need to get the job done.
Get in the zone, AutoZone.
Claim based on data from the MPD Group 2021. Deposit required for Loan-A-Tool.
Conversations that matter. You're listening to Tavis Smiley on KBLA Talk 1580.
Ruben, I confess this is not a fair question to ask you with 2.5 minutes left. Let me give you a chance to sound off on this. We are unapologetically progressive here on KBLA Talk 1580, and I believe that means telling the truth. I believe that means sometimes you got to fight with your friends, but ultimately you got to tell the truth. I was struck by this ugly New York Times story suggesting that the Biden administration ignored findings that migrant kids were being trafficked into the U.S. for free labor. That ain't the face they put forward. How did you read that story in the New York Times?
It's been very much underreported, again, because it wasn't the Trump administration that did this. The Biden administration, through its various arms, including the Department of Health and Human Services, ignored reports that migrant kids were being trafficked into the U.S. to perform these cheap labor jobs, these free labor jobs. And it goes again to what I've always said. Those folks out there who say that black folks and brown folks are being abused and exploited and ignored and neglected by the Republican Party, that's awesome. That's true. I'm not going to argue that, but that's only half right. They're also being all those things mistreated by the Democrat Party. Mm. And that is what I say every time I come on your show. It's frustrating because, and not just in your show, but also just in general, it's frustrating to listen to the media where we always sort of get outraged, as well we should, when a conservative administration does something like this. But when a liberal Democratic administration turns a blind eye to this and they get caught doing it, nobody wants to talk about it.
I've been trying for 30 years, y'all, to pull Ruben over to my side of the progressive ledger. I've been trying for 30 years, 3 decades, to make him.
Stories like this won't do it.
I was going to say, you stole my line. You stole my line. I've been trying to make Ruben a progressive for 30 years. I have not had much success. On certain issues, he's better. But when I see stories like this, that the Biden administration ignores, data that migrant kids are being trafficked into our country,
it's not helping you.
It is not helping my case. On that note, I will pause for today. I will talk to you again soon. I love you. Appreciate you. All the best to you, my friend.
Love you, brother. Take care. Bye-bye.
Talk to you soon. Hour 2 of Tavis Smiley. After news, traffic, and sports, you are listening, and we are glad about it, to KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Mike Moore. Here's the latest from the Black Information Network. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention is taking up a request today for a second dose of the updated COVID booster for older adults.
Bivalent booster